with Christy Hutchison, Women. Good, happy afternoon, everybody. I'm Ann Vandersteel, and welcome to the Zelenko Report. I am standing here with Christy Hutchison, Women Fighting for America.
Hey, Ann, everybody out there, you're going to have a great show today. Ann is going to be interviewing Dr. Zelenko's brother, Frank Zelenko, and you're going to learn a lot about the Jewish history.
Excellent, Christy. Thank you so much. Hey, guys, this show is brought to you by Z-Stack Life, Dr. Zelenko's flagship product. Use your promo code Foundation. You're also going to be able to get a discount with Foundation over at mypillow.com. And don't forget Kirk Elliott, PhD/Ann for all of your great financial advice. That's right, the reset's coming. Enjoy the show, everybody. Have a great Friday. And don't forget, coming up March 11th at the Trump Doral Miami, the Zelenko Freedom Foundation Black Tie Gala, including speaker panels with Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, Dr. Keith Rose, Lee Taylor Dundas, and Dr. Jane Ruby, and many others. Mel Kay is also going to be showing up, folks. You don't want to miss this event. Get your tickets at zfreedomfoundation.com.
Here we grow again. Brighteon is expanding with our new daily live stream in Espanol. Anchored by hosts like Fior Hernandez, a former Telemundo and Fox reporter, Brighteon TV in Espanol is bringing over a dozen new hosts and shows to the Spanish speakers of the world who are seeking out the truth on everything. To watch, go to Brighteon.com, click on the Espanol live stream, and prepare to hear the truth in a whole new language. Brighteon TV in Espanol. This was made possible by Brighteon.com. After being deplatformed by YouTube, I built Brighteon.com so that we can speak. All voices of dissent are welcome. Join Brighteon.com now, post your videos today, and start building an audience there where you will not be censored. Brighteon.com. Your own government has the power to activate a kill switch on all telecommunications, instantly shutting down all private phone calls and texts. An EMP weapon or solar flare can achieve the same result. Rolling blackouts or permanent power outages will also take out the power supply to cell tower antennas, rendering mobile devices all but useless. During these emergencies, how do you stay in touch with the important people in your life anywhere on the planet? The answer is the Bivy Stick at sat123.com. The Bivy Stick is a two-way satellite text messaging device that uses a satellite constellation, not cell towers, to send and receive text messages. It works anywhere on planet Earth, including in war zones or blackout areas. In unpredictable times, the Bivy Stick helps you stay connected when it matters most. Visit sat123.com to get one while they're still available.
Here is a special treat, and someone who is hopefully going to become a closer friend to me than his brother was. Frank Zelenko is joining me now, and I've got to say I owe him a debt of gratitude because words matter, diction matters, and he reminded me of that recently on a Getter post I had when I was referencing the Ashkenazi Jews, and I'm going to put that up here on the screen so we can talk about this post. But Frank, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you for taking an interest in the foundation that your brother has left behind for Kevin Jenkins, my co-chair, and myself to carry forward his legacy. And I look forward to you being a very important part of this foundation. But frankly, this is a discussion that I think is going to be enlightening to not only me, but to the audience worldwide, because there's a lot of misconceptions about the Jewish religion, the Jewish faith, the Jewish people. And like anything, there's good and bad in everything. So Frank, welcome to the Zelenko Report, the show that has your name.
And thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. And so just to talk about words for a second, for me, as an American, the primary thing about words is that all words should be said absolutely without fear, without any kind of consequences whatsoever, because free speech is non-negotiable to any extent. And, we started talking about this topic even before Kanye got into the news, and it's just funny. It's a weird coincidence, right? So,
yep.
But I don't think Kanye should be penalized in any way for anything that he said. I don't think he should be canceled. I don't think he should suffer $1.
That's gracious.
He should maintain his billionaire status as much as he wants. Even even though I have to wait till my next paycheck to buy baby formula. That's fine. But yet somehow he blames me for his billionaire woes. But anyway, getting back to the main point. No, but I don't think that he should suffer in any way. I don't think he should be canceled because we have to be able to say whatever we want to say. Because if he gets to say what he wants to say, I get to say what I want to say.
Right.
That's it. Okay. So that's primary to me. Now,
Fair enough.
just there are certain terms which people have been using, people that I know are good people. Okay. Which I think are misnomers. That's about as strong language as I would use. Okay. The actual phenomenon that is being described by terms like the Khazarian mafia and Ashkenaz they're real. They're definitely real, except I think that the words that are being used are not correct. That's basically really all I'm trying to say. So I think so the term Ashkenaz, it appears in the Bible. He's a descendant of Japhet, of Noah's son. Okay. And he settled, according to the Torah perspective, he settled in the area of Europe, which is northern Italy, Germany, the Swiss Alps, France, that area. So that region is called Ashkenaz. So the Jewish community that ended up in that region after the expulsion from Israel by the Romans, they ended up in that. There's a community, a certain portion of that population that was expelled from Israel ended up in that region, which we traditionally call Ashkenaz. So that's how you get the term Ashkenazi Jews. Okay, that was the second largest community of Jews in the world. The first was actually the Sephardic community. That would be in Spain, because the Hebrew word for Spain is Sepharad. So that's where these terms essentially come from. And then the Khazarian mafia, okay, which I've heard a lot. That takes a little bit more to unpack. So basically, this kind of started in the 70s. This nobody ever said Khazarian or Khazarian anything until the 70s. There's a guy, his name is Arthur Koestler. It's like Koestler, something like that.
Okay.
He was a communist who wrote a book saying that he actually came from Jews too. And he's a prime example of the type of person we're going to be talking about. So he wrote a book called The 13th Tribe, I believe. Okay, everybody should read everything I'm saying, even though it says, that I'm evil. Okay, read everything is the point.
Oh, 100%.
So he wrote a book. That says that the Ashkenazi Jews are not real Jews, meaning we're not descended from the family of Jacob and his 12 sons.
Okay.
We are descended from the Khazars, who converted to Judaism around the year, I want to say 900, something like that, or maybe 1000. Okay.
Okay.
And that's where the community comes from. So we can in like later conversations, we can go into that claim, into the details of it, and to see, does it have any legitimacy? Like genetically, there have been a lot of work done. There has been a lot of work done, like with genetic, try to like track people throughout the generations to see, where do they really come from and stuff like that. So genetic research has shown it to be false for the most part. Okay. So traditionally, based on the best history that I think that I've come in contact with, so you have this kingdom called the Khazars,
Mm-hmm.
and the royal and the king, he got representatives from all the religions that he comes across in his area, because his people were pagan. They had some kind of pagan religion at that time, and he was curious about the truth. He wanted to know, what is the best of the religions. So supposedly he got representatives from Islam, which was just coming up at that time, okay, Christianity and Judaism, and I think a few others, I'm not sure. So in the end, he chose Judaism. And so he converted. Most of his kids converted, and a lot of the royal court and many of the aristocracy converted, but it's not clear how many of the aristocracy did it because they believed it or they just wanted to get in good with the king. So it kind of got a little shifty. Okay.
Okay.
The population did not convert. Okay.
Why?
They didn't want to. The king allowed it. You know, they're like, you guys, here's what I think is great. I'm not going to force you to do it. That was basically, you know, the way he felt about it. So most of the people did not. But over the years, Khazaria became a place that was like generally friendly to religious Jews. The Jews, well, all the Jews in the world were Orthodox at that time, all of them, essentially. You know what I mean, like you had people that didn't observe the commandments, right? Like you had people that didn't do anything, but when they went to, you know, when they went to visit their mother's house, or they went home for the holidays, they went to an Orthodox, you know, religious center. That's basically that was the truth for all of history until about the mid 1800s. But
Okay.
we'll get back to that another time. Well, I'll just quickly say that the German Communist Party in the late 1800s, which was like the next generation descendants from the Illuminati. There's just a couple of years difference. They're called the Bund, and they established these religions like Reform Judaism and Conservative Judaism specifically to, you know, to begin taking religious Jews and pulling them away from their, you know, from their superstitions, quote unquote. So anyway, that's just a little preview. But with getting back to the Khazarians, so because it became at least a Jewish-friendly kingdom, there were a lot of Persian Jews that came over to that area, to Khazaria, because they were having a lot of problems with persecution in Persia at that time. Okay, so that's essentially how what's known today as the Ashkenazi community formed. So you have people coming from Israel, ending up in Ashkenaz, then gradually moving north and east. Okay, and then you had Khazarian and then Persian Jews coming and settling there, and then that all kind of mixed over time, and that's Ashkenazi Jews. Okay, so just a point of fact is that no one ever mentioned the word Khazari or Khazarian until the 1970s when Arthur Koestler, it's communist, wrote a book. And the point of the book was to say that Israel should be dismantled because the Jews that are there, they're not even real Jews. So these terms have kind of been around since that time. So really, really recent. You know
So
what I mean?
basically, Arthur Koestler, who wrote the book about Khazarian mafia, in your best estimation, is who actually
he wrote about this kingdom called the Khazars, and he claimed that the Jews that were found recently in Eastern Europe and in Central Europe are from that Turkic kingdom.
Right. So this was never a thing until the 70s. And this, you know, Khazaria, we're talking about going back in time since 900, right? We're talking hundreds, over a couple thousand years we're talking about here. So,
I mean, you know, yeah, like, you know, more than 1,000 years. There's, you know, right around the time when Muhammad was spreading Islam.
right. So to have something as recent as 1970 pop up and have this become a thing is of interest because it has become quite prevalent in the conversations of people in new media specifically that are constantly condemning this group known as the Khazarian Mafia. And a lot of times they just blanket use the word Ashkenazi Jew, which would be like saying all Italians are bad because you have a mafia that's famous coming out of the Italian, you know, group of people. Is that sort of similar?
Yeah, it's similar. I personally think, just because I've had so many conversations with good people that have used terms like this, and I realize that most of the people that are using these terms, I don't think are aware of, you know, the details of the history. And I think those terms were kind of incorporated into the discussion, into the vernacular, by people who want to harm the Jews, like politically and physically, especially in Israel. I mean, that's what it is. So So the people that introduced it, I think, are up to no good. Most people that use it, I just think that they don't have any other terms to. There's literally no other language that they know of to identify certain phenomena which are real. So that's what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
Okay. So let's take, George Soros is the easiest guy to pick on here
Sure is.
because, well, it's his own fault. Okay.
Of
So,
course it is.
so he's a good example. Like Arthur Koestler, we mentioned. Now George Soros is a guy he is a person who believes that, he really wants to live the John Lennon song. Imagine. He believes in it. It's not, people think he's like some kind of evil demon that just wants to, trip old ladies as they grow. No, he believes that all cultural and racial identity is poison for the world. He believes that borders are a horrible thing holding us back. Okay, and that we need to move forward. We need to disconnect from our ethnic roots and move forward and realize we're all just one people. Okay, so
you had to ask yourself, why did he single out the Jews then?
Because this is what I was going to mention.
Believed in bringing everybody together.
Because he believes that the Jews hold on the hardest to their history and their culture and their ethnicity, that part of their identity. So that's who you have to hit first in order to make everybody else crumble. If you get the Jews, then if you can disconnect Jews from their country, from their beliefs, from their religion, from their very identity, then you can pull anybody away from their identity. You can pull Hindus away from India. You can, and so on and so forth. That's basically what it boils down to. Okay. So that's George Soros. So when people say Khazarian Mafia, they're talking about guys like that. But there is another term, much older term, goes way back past the 70s. Okay. In fact, it goes back 3,334 years, almost exactly. Okay. Religious Jews, we call these people the Erev Rav, which would be translated the mixed multitude. The mixed multitude. If people recall in the Exodus story, well, I'll give you the exact. Just a moment. Just a moment. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Just to have a little structure. So where is it? Oh no. All right. So in the book of Shemot, which is Exodus, it talks about the Jews leaving Egypt, right, and traveling from Ramses to another place called Sukkot, right, and it mentions that there were 600,000 men between the ages of 20 and 60, and also the Erev Rav, meaning the mixed multitude, went up with them.
Okay.
So this is before Mount Sinai. Okay, so according to the Torah, anybody that was present at Mount Sinai became part of what formed as the Jewish nation at that point. Like there was no Jewish nation until Mount Sinai occurred. So who was at Mount Sinai? You had the family of Jacob, right, and his 12 sons and all the people, that entire population. And then you had an equal amount of people that were Egyptians that came on board, that saw, to them it was like the writing was on the wall. They knew that they wanted to, they saw what was going on to Egypt. They saw what God was doing, and they're like, all right, we get it. All right. We want in. We want in.
Right.
But who were these Egyptians? They were part of the Egyptian aristocracy and the priesthood. Okay. So just to give a quick description. Okay. So just a moment. Oh, okay. I actually found the source in the text. So in the book of Exodus, in chapter 12, verses 37 through 38, where it says the children of Israel traveled from Ramses towards Sukkot, there were about 600,000 adult males on foot, besides the children.
Okay.
The multitude also went up with them. So you see the text isolates them and identifies them as a separate entity. Okay, at that point. Okay, so who are these? Who are the Egyptian priesthood that were, that then decided, many of them, not the whole thing, but many of them decided to, to join the Jews. Okay, so basically, there's a lot of information on them. So basically, there were people with a God complex.
Huh.
When you study who they were, okay, they felt, when they're portrayed like in the movies, and they're portrayed as these like evil people and kind of like one-dimensional characters, but it's never like that. So, these are people that they felt the weight of the world on their shoulders. And remember, everything that I'm saying comes from the Torah perspective. So that's the disclaimer.
Right.
Okay, so basically, so these guys, again, they were part of the aristocracy and the priesthood. These are Egyptians, and they were keepers of the secrets of nature and technology. Okay, so the way that the Torah describes them is that they had such command over the natural world that they could manifest any type of physical phenomenon which was above the size of a louse, something like very, very a tiny little insect. Okay, it's pretty bizarre the way it's amazing the way they're described. So basically, anything the size of a small insect or smaller was beyond their abilities to tap into. So basically, they received this information from a more advanced pre-flood civilization. Okay, they preserved it and they utilized it to the best of their ability, and they kept it safe from those they deemed irresponsible or unworthy. Okay.
Okay.
So the Egyptian spirituality was a technology. It wasn't really a relationship that they had with some kind of deity. So the spirituality they practiced was self-serving. It was functional. It was practical. The rituals that are described, they were about the manipulation of non-material physics. That's how they would describe it. They would use rituals to achieve meditative states, to access non-material energies with their consciousness. They would use these energies to manifest useful material objects or to cause some kind of effect in their physical environment. Okay, they were able to do this really well, and that's how they rose to be the main power of the world at that time. So,
okay,
it's like, imagine a mechanical engineer would use a solenoid, right? So that's how they viewed their spirituality.
Well, I just look at the pyramids and people marvel at how could those people have done that without modern equipment, modern machinery. How did man move that?
That's exactly right. The more you study the pyramids, the more you realize. And actually, I have a good buddy of mine. He's a Dutch dude. He's probably don't have permission to say his name, but he's a large-scale engineer. He builds like giant hotels, and he builds like factories and breweries and stuff like that all over the world.
Okay.
And during, this is many years ago, one of the conversations that I had with him, we got into this topic, and he's like, listen to me. We don't know, we would not be able to build the pyramids even with everything that we have today, even with our,
Correct.
2,000-ton cranes and stuff like that. We wouldn't be able to do it. We wouldn't be able to stack it. It's impossible. Forget it. And you're not supposed to say that as an engineer, like out loud. But when they hang out with each other, they're like, how the hell do they do that?
Yeah.
So there's a lot to talk about there, but yeah. So basically, these people were the priesthood, the Egyptian priesthood.
Copy.
Were that had this amazing power. They had the technology. So basically, however, they did come in contact with the idea of a God who is the creator and sustainer of existence in general. Like they would tap into spiritual like entities that existed, that are non-material, but kind of, let's say, close by, if you will, accessible, right? But the idea of a creator God who was in charge of everything, who runs everything, and who sustains everything in every moment was difficult for them to deal with. Okay. Until Joseph came to Egypt. Okay?
Frank, I'm going to ask you to pause right here. I want to take a quick break because we have to. We're up on a hard stop. We're going to pick back up right after this commercial break with Frank Zelenko, the brother of the late, great Dr. Vladimir Zev Zelenko. We're having an in-depth discussion on the origins of a lot of misused and misapplied terms such as Ashkenazi Jews, such as Khazarian mafia. But we're going to get to the bottom of this so that people can better understand it and better apply the language when they're speaking about these groups of people, because this is a spiritual war we're in, folks, if you haven't noticed. And we, the people of the world, are up against some really bad demonic forces that are trying to confuse us with language. So stick with us right here on the Zelenko Report. We have the namesake of the show, Frank Zelenko, Dr. Zelenko's brother, with us. Be right back after this break.
Tired of being surveilled and tracked by the wireless phone companies and a rogue government? Get off the surveillance grid by turning to Volta Wireless. By plugging the Volta SIM card into your phone, you become hidden from the spy networks of AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, and other carriers, while maintaining your full ability to place and receive phone calls and SMS texts. Go to voltawireless.com and use discount code BTV to save big on your first month. You get free VPN services included, plus a private messenger that's encrypted, as well as another Volta private phone number that can coexist with your current number. Learn more at voltawireless.com and use discount code BTV for major savings. It works with both iPhones and Android phones across 200 plus countries. Volta Wireless is the official wireless privacy sponsor of Brighteon.tv.
Just continues to get more and more maddening, more and more frustrating, which ignites the flame of the fire for this show to continue the fight. And Christopher Key is doing the same thing. This organization, Vaccine Police, I am proud to continue to support them, and I hope that you will too. Go to vaccine-police.com. He video documents everything as he's in the face of these hospital administrators that are killing your community members, your friends, your family, your relatives, in the face of these petty tyrants on school boards, in the face of the, you know what he's doing? He's putting up billboards in major metropolitan areas, waking people up that otherwise would have no idea that these shots are dangerous and in many cases deadly. That information that Karen Kingston just brought us, that's the type of stuff that Christopher Key is sharing with the world. Please go support this organization. Go to vaccine-police.com. Look at the video documentation of everything this guy is doing. It's amazing. I applaud his efforts. He's a modern day hero. There will be a statue of Christopher Key somewhere when this whole thing is over and we win this war. Please support that organization. Go to vaccine-police.com. Again, vaccine-police.com.
All right, we just back from a commercial break. We have Dr. Zev Zelenko's brother, the wonderful Frank Zelenko, who has been giving us an incredible education history, in fact, on the origins of the Khazarian mafia, the Ashkenazi, and where we left off, we were talking about Exodus, going back to the Egyptians, going back 3,334 years ago. In fact, Frank, this is some deep history here. I love the lesson.
Yeah, this is namely, for those interested, this is specifically the history through the lens of the religious Jewish, the traditional Jewish perspective. Okay?
Yep.
So that's how we're looking at it. So basically, when Joseph came to Egypt and then he became viceroy of Egypt, right? People know the story very, very well. So he had a tremendous influence on the population. Many people loved him and revered him and were influenced by his beliefs and his teachings. Okay, so including among the aristocracy and the Egyptian priesthood. So that mixed multitude that left with Moses and the Israelites, they weren't like completely brand new to the idea. A lot of them have been kind of chewing over Joseph's teachings about the one God. Okay, so, and for instance, one of the stories, we have a tradition when Moses, as a baby, when he was floating in the river and his basket floated next to Batia, who was the daughter of the Egyptian pharaoh. And, she stretched out her arm to get, so she was, it describes her as bathing there, but actually our tradition is that she was immersing herself in the ritual bath in the conversion process to convert to Joseph's religion. That's what they knew. They didn't have the terms we have today, but it was the religion of Joseph, the God that Joseph was describing. Okay. So so, there's a history, there's a couple of 100 years of these ideas kind of like rummaging around in the mind of the Egyptian priesthood. And that's why when the Israelites left, a very large amount of the Egyptian aristocracy left along with them. It's also worth to note that Moses grew up among them. Okay. He was, essentially raised like one of them, received the same education. And he understood that there was a lot of value there. There's a lot of good people. A lot of things that obviously that he didn't agree with, the things that they believed and the things that they did, but he noticed that there were these sparks of holiness. This is a term that religious Jews use. They had sparks of holiness that needed to be extracted, that could be used for the good. So Moses allowed that group of people to come, even against God's advice. We have a tradition that Moses had a conversation with God whether or not he should bring them along. God advised against it, but he did not forbid it.
Okay.
I know that's a whole other conversation. Every one of these little things is like a 5-hour conversation, but basically, it wasn't so easy. All of the issues that we're dealing with in the desert, the golden calf, all the complaining, if people know the story very well, right?
Yeah.
That was, especially if you're familiar with the Hebrew text, whoever was involved in all of the rebellions, most of them were these Erev Rav, because the term that was used there was the Am. The Am means the nation, okay? But other terms, when God is not specifically referring to the Erev Rav, to the mixed multitude, he uses terms like Bnei Yaakov, or the children of Jacob, or the children of Israel. Jacob and Israel being the same person. Okay, so there's always like a distinction, even after Mount Sinai. Okay, so we have this element called Erev Rav. So during the Exodus, they were just as numerous as the actual Israelites, the children of Jacob. However, we have a tradition that in subsequent generations, this entity, this kind of rebellious entity within our ranks, it exists, but it never manifests as a large group of people. It manifests as a handful of people. And how do you identify them? So the way we as religious Jews identify them is that anybody who is involved in compromising our observance of Torah law as prescribed in the Torah. So at this point, if it's okay, I wanted to just kind of describe what a Jew is, what a religion, because from many, many conversations I've had with my Christian friends, hundreds, and even from Christian family members, people don't know. So that's my impression. I mean, if there's anybody out there that knows, please, forgive me, but many people don't. So I'll just give a basic description. So basically, just a moment.
This is good stuff, Frank.
Yeah, it's for me, it's a pleasure. And I really appreciate the opportunity to
of course
present this. So basically, Jews believe that the creator and sustainer of existence communicated his will to mankind when he transmitted the Hebrew Torah text and its explanation in the form of the oral tradition, which is sometimes referred to as the Talmud, to Moses, okay, at Mount Sinai. We believe that the 613 commandments stated in the text are eternal and immutable, and that they are God's most essential will and desire. That's what we believe. The 613 commandments are divided into things that you have to do, and then things that you are not allowed to do. Okay, so there are 248 do's, meaning we got to do them, and then 365 things that we have to avoid. Okay, the problem is in these days, out of those 248 commandments of things that we're supposed to do, there's only 77 that are available to us today. The ones that aren't available, the rest of them, are related to offerings in the temple in Jerusalem. Okay.
Okay.
So for that, you'd need a temple in Jerusalem, right? And also there are laws about appointing a high priest and a king, specifically from the paternal lineage of King David and Solomon. Okay. So basically, in order to fulfill God's will, we need our homeland Israel. We need our sanctuary on the Temple Mount, and we require a Davidic king. So to an Orthodox Jew, these things are non-negotiable. So just like free speech and the right to bear arms and all other God-given rights are to American patriots, right? There are no compromises with any of them. Okay,
so when President Trump restored the embassy to Jerusalem, what did that mean to you?
That was a great symbol. It was a great symbol because it feels like a recognition of reality. It feels like that's one thing about Trump's presidency that I feel was a theme. It was about getting in touch with reality, with our real problems, with the border, with drugs, with crime, with all the problems in the Democrat-run places. Okay, as we can see, that was about getting down to reality, for people to realize what is going on and what needs to be done. I think that was just part of it, because for the people of Israel now, Jerusalem is their capital. We don't really need others to recognize it. And it's a reality, there's a country right now, it's called Israel, and their capital is in Jerusalem, right?
Right.
So it's good that others would recognize that, especially America, who, like, I believe is a brother nation, but that is a whole other can of worms that we can talk about some other time. Okay. There's a lot of connection between Jews, between the Bible, and between the people specifically in the United States right now. But that's like, can't talk about everything in the world. Everything is like huge conversation. But that meant a lot to me, what he did. It really.
So I'll let you continue going on. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No. Listen, this is a discussion. So.
No, I know it is. Oh.
Yeah. So basically, so those things, we need those things to fulfill all the commandments. That's to an Orthodox Jew, meaning traditional Jew, that's a priority. They have to be done. And there are certain resources that we need to do them, namely the land of Israel, Jerusalem, temple, and a Davidic king, and a few other things. Okay. And they're non-negotiable. Okay. Just like our basic God-given rights are in America are to American patriots. Okay. There's no compromises with any of them.
Okay.
So we believe that the only thing that will really bring an end to death and suffering and evil and conflict to the whole world is for Jews to be able to perform the commandments, which we believe will draw back the revealed presence of God in the world, which the Torah refers to as the Shekhinah. So I know a lot of Christians are familiar with that term as well. I forgot how they pronounce it. So basically, so we believe that this is the only way to bring true blessing, peace, and abundance to all the people of the world. So and also all the efforts that are meant to improve the circumstances for people in the world that exclude the observance of these commandments, and also the 7 laws of Noah by non-Jews, are doomed to failure. Anything that excludes that is essentially, as altruistic as it might be, it's doomed to failure because it's lacking that ingredient. Okay, so basically, so our duty, we see our duty, it is as to fulfill the commandments that are available right now, and to eagerly prepare to observe the commandments that will become available. Okay, and we also have to exert all of our efforts to make it possible too, not just like wait around for God, but we got to do whatever we can, whatever He allows us to do, in order to make that happen. Okay, so
right,
that's our perspective. So let's consider just for a second, what we're actually talking about. Okay, so we're talking about if you're looking at it from, let's say, a person, a regular American, maybe he's not religious, maybe he thinks like most religious observance is kind of like is nonsense, right? So we're talking about some religious rituals which are described and discussed in the Torah, which are performed by a couple of temple priests in a building on a small hill in the middle of a country, which is smaller than New Jersey. Okay. That shouldn't really bother anybody. You know what I mean? Especially if you're not a believer of it, right? If you're one of these people that thinks that it's all fairy tales, then it shouldn't bother you any more than Renaissance fair people, or those
Sure.
guys dressed up like ancient warriors and they hit each other with foam axes and maces in the middle of the woods. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, no, absolutely. I've been to one of those medieval
Oh, really?
festivals before.
Oh, listen,
Yeah,
by the
wandered
way-
in on one, had no idea what it was. I said, look at this. These people are eating Jurassic turkey legs and they're
Yeah.
wearing fur skins and it's like 95 degrees outside. What are they doing out here in the middle of the woods?
You know what I mean? So if that's how you feel about it, right? If you're a person out there listening to this and you feel that way about it, why would this bother you? Why would? And yet somehow, like almost everybody you speak to, they have one reason or another to say that this is the worst possible thing that could ever happen to mankind. That you have some kind of, guy dressed up in a funny costume doing a religious ritual in a building, on top of a small hill somewhere. Okay, so that part doesn't make sense to me, but whatever. So just to add some more perspective, like just in the 6-Day War, right, after all the armies from the surrounding Arab countries mobilized their forces to attack Israel and wipe it out, that was their stated objective. Israel fought back and defeated those forces. People know the story, but in the process of doing that, the Jewish soldiers, they conquered and they repossessed Jerusalem and the Temple Mount, because until that time it was under the quote unquote Jordanians. So that was for Jews in general, that was a clear message from God that we are now to begin the process of establishing a temple and to restore temple services as we are instructed to in the Torah. Now, we wouldn't be able to reinstate everything right away because there are these laws of ritual purity. Basically, if any Jewish person was ever made any contact with a dead body, then they would have to undergo this ritual that would cleanse them of it, which involved a red heifer and lots of things. Okay,
Right.
So most people are considered ritually impure because most people have come in contact or have been in the proximity of a dead body, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not allowed to step foot on most of the temple area. Actually, not most of it, but there's certain areas we're not allowed to step on in that state of ritual impurity. However, there are areas in the temple that are permitted to go, okay? And then there are observances that are available to be brought, meaning there are offerings that are described in the Torah that are available to be brought to people even in the state of what we call ritual impurity. Okay, so essentially what religious Jews or just Jews in general in Israel felt was that we got to do it. Look, the opportunities here, right? So basically in 1967, when especially when people found out that Jerusalem was conquered and then the troops took the Temple Mount, okay? So most of the Jews in Israel, by the way, they were religious or even if they were non-observant, they had a very strong emotional connection to Torah observance. Okay,
Right.
So conquest of the temple was the greatest moment of their lives. Okay, most of the people thought that they were dreaming when they heard the news, like literally dreaming. Soldiers who conquered the temple were like in awe. Like sometimes you see interviews of them, describing how they felt, and there's like these photographs of them, like you see their faces. They were in shock.
Yeah.
So what happened with all this excitement, with all these wonderful, developments? Members of the secular, political, and military leadership in Israel decided to restore custody of the Temple Mount to the Arabs, apparently for diplomatic reasons. Okay, so to the warriors that conquered the Temple Mount and the majority of the people in Israel, this decision was something like the Golden Calf incident. That's how it felt. It felt like a repeat of the worst possible tragedy, okay, like from a religious standpoint. So now, with this background, we can begin to talk about the Erev Rav.
So
Okay.
we've got, unfortunately, Frank, just so you know, we have got about 5 minutes or a little bit less left of this. I think probably what we need to do is get into the Erev Rav piece, because that's the part that's probably the most significant here in terms of, you've given us a great history lesson, but I want to break down the Erevov piece because this is where I think everybody gets caught up in the weeds and starts throwing terminology around like Ashkenazi and Khazarian and all this stuff. And they don't really fully understand the history and the significance that you're making blanket accusations when you don't fully understand the application and who specifically. It's like saying Catholics or Indians. Well, there could be a very small specific secular piece of that, not just the whole thing. So with your permission, can I hit pause on this and then we will come back and do a follow-up show with you on this second half of the Erevov?
You can just call it the mixed multitude. The Erevov.
Mixed multitude?
Yeah, the mixed multitude. That's how it's described, kind of. But yeah, absolutely. I'm
so this is, since this is a Friday pre-recorded show, what I want to do is bring you back on Monday and do the detailed deep dive on the Erevov piece, because I think that is considerably significant. And this is where I know lots and lots of people have questions and they get caught up in the weeds.
It's my honor and my privilege to do so.
Okay, awesome. Frank, you're really just awesome for working with me on this. All right, I do want to pivot here really quickly because I know that conversation is going to be a lot longer, but I want to, since we have a couple minutes left, can you sort of give me your personal, in like 2 minutes that we have remaining on this segment, sort of where you are post your brother's, moving on to the next realm. And I do believe he is looking out for a lot of us and keeping a lot of us very busy and guiding. I know he's guiding me. I get downloads from him on a regular basis, and I know it's your brother talking to me. So
that's amazing. You won't believe how many people tell me what you just said. So
I believe it. It's the most uncanny thing, Frank. I'll wake up in the middle of the night or the middle of the morning. It's as I sit up, I go, what did you just say? And I have to get up and write it down. I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly what I need to do. That I'm stuck on something, and boom, it shifts me in another direction. It's not like I'm sitting here mulling it over in the middle of the night. I just wake up and it's like, I got to download. Okay. He likes to come to me in the middle of the night or really early in the morning. That's when he seems to get around to me, because I don't know why, but that's the clock I'm on with your brother. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel that way. Many people tell me that they feel that way, and I have similar experiences. And where I'm holding personally is just trying to stay functional, trying to stay busy, try to, continue his efforts in whatever way I can, whatever little way I can contribute. And that's pretty much it, because
so can we count on you and your support at the gala? Because we've actually extended the gala thanks to Hurricane Ian. The gala has been moved from November 12th to March 11th. But we're not just doing a gala. We're actually making this a full day of panels. We have 2 panels in the morning, 1 panel in the evening. Charlie Kirk has agreed to be our keynote speaker, which is fantastic. But these panels are going to be really, really critical in terms of giving people actionable items as parents of children who are getting their kids, being, should we say, stalked by the CDC's vaccine schedule, and, other topics of discussion. The American dissident now. Your brother was a dissident. He and Brent Hamachek love to talk about being dissidents in today's society. So I hope that we can see you at that event as well. Maybe you'll be one of our dissident panelists. Who knows?
I would love to be. I'll help in any way I can.
Frank, you're awesome. All right. So folks, you heard it here. We're going to bring Frank back on Monday and finish this topic, because this is where we're going to find the meat on the bone. And let's get the record straight from an Ashkenazi Jew himself, Frank Zelenko. Incredibly funny brother, although this is not a funny topic. If you speak to Frank offline, you'll know what I'm talking about. Or if you listen to his podcast, you'll even know further what I'm talking about. He's got a great sense of humor, just like Zev did. So it's an honor, Frank, to speak with you today. I really appreciate you.
It's my pleasure. That podcast is called Truth Fanatics. You can find us on Substack, on YouTube, where the channel is called The Nation of Israel. And thanks for mentioning it.
Obviously. Okay, everybody, have a great weekend. We will see you on Monday again with Frank Zelenko.